For the last 300 years, human society has been organized around a very specific story. It is the belief that applying human reason, scientific inquiry, and open markets will steadily and inevitably improve our lives. This graphic maps out the undeniable triumphs of that narrative. We applied that framework and successfully discovered antibiotics, deployed global communication networks, and brought widespread literacy to billions. The promise was real, and it delivered massive reductions in human suffering. Modernity provided genuine gifts: anesthesia, sanitation, and human rights. We are seeking a perspective broad enough to protect those achievements by grounding them in a framework that can actually sustain them. The issue isn't whether progress is real. The question we have to ask now is whether our current definition of progress is actually mature enough to manage a planetary civilization. Right now, we measure our success on a very narrow dashboard. We prioritize what is easy to quantify in a spreadsheet: gross domestic product, factory output, and processing speed. But that same dashboard completely ignores the critical conditions that resist simple measurement. It doesn't track the integrity of a local ecosystem, the baseline of social trust in a community, or the physical well-being of people who haven't been born yet. Take a look at this rendering. It shows climbing green bar charts for GDP, speed, and output. But look at the background. The ecological and social fabric is visibly unraveling. What a civilization fails to measure, it almost always destroys. This is the danger of our current operating system. It can output quarterly reports that look like total success, while quietly building up a massive catastrophe just beneath the surface. In the early 1920s, a chemist named Thomas Midgley Jr. added a compound called tetraethyl lead to gasoline. It successfully eliminated engine knock, allowing cars to run far more efficiently. At the time, it was celebrated as a brilliant technical triumph. But this diagram illustrates the invisible cost of that efficiency. The engine was fixed, but it was spewing a potent neurotoxin out of the tailpipe, embedding lead into the air, soil, and human bodies all over the world. Look at the specific data points here. That single localized solution eventually cost an estimated 824 million lost IQ points globally, and strongly correlated with massive spikes in violent crime across cities. We ran the exact same playbook with PFAS forever chemicals and with synthetic pesticides. Here is a truck actively fogging a public beach with DDT to control insects, years before science established the systemic ecological collapse it was causing. We do this in the digital realm too. We deployed social media platforms to connect the world, optimizing them entirely for engagement and ad revenue. The byproduct was severely fragmented human attention and a fractured sense of shared reality. These repeated cycles reveal a structural flaw in our design process. We optimize a local variable, and we deploy it globally. Our technological inventions consistently scale faster than our capacity to understand their consequences. Defenders of the current system usually point to three massive statistical wins to shut down criticism. Life expectancy is up, extreme poverty is down, and global education has expanded. This table lays out those exact claims. If you look at the top row, the gain is real. Averages are up, driven largely by reducing infant mortality. But check the shadow column. A massive portion of those added years are lived managing chronic illness, loneliness, and heavy pharmaceutical dependence. We see a similar dynamic with extreme poverty. Hundreds of millions cross the $2.15 a day threshold, but that specific income metric ignores the forced ecological displaced loss of communal land access and the precariousness of urban slums required to earn that cash. If you only look at the positive numbers, you get a highly flattering story, but the arithmetic is broken. We are constantly mistaking the long-term depletion of a living system for the short-term growth of an economy. So why does this keep happening? Why do we continually get blindsided by the dark side of our own brilliant ideas? This diagram maps out the three forces driving that blindness. First is complexity. We apply simple, linear reasoning to deeply complex biological and social systems. Second is competitive incentives. Markets heavily reward speed over restraint. If you pause to test an algorithm for safety, your competitor builds it first and dominates the market. And third is epistemic lag. This is the dangerous time gap between deploying a technology and the years it takes for scientists to finally prove the damage it causes. By optimizing narrow metrics, the old narrative built massive industrial power, leaving us structurally blind to the global wounds created in the process. To fix this, we have to look closely at the difference between growth and development. Watch this tree sapling. In its early stage, it needs to grow physically. It gets taller and wider to establish itself. But there is a strict biological reality here. At a certain point, physical growth must stop. If a biological system just keeps expanding physically forever, we call that a disease. A mature organism stops growing in size and instead develops in complexity, resilience, and depth. This panel shows what that transition looks like for a society. An immature civilization asks short-term questions. How do we increase volume and speed for quarterly earnings? A mature civilization asks systems-level questions. How do we build coherence, health, and multi-generational wisdom? This graphic shows a mature operating system. Left, we internalize externalities, calculating true ecological costs into the price tag. Right, we pivot from extraction to regenerating life, strengthening communities. And we expand our moral horizon, giving future generations a voice in present decisions. In a mature system, we enlist science, engineering, and AI to align human activities with the self-renewing logic of nature. We move from attempting to dominate the world to participating wisely in the unfolding of life. We have to let go of the illusion that we can separate ourselves from the biosphere and control it from the outside. We are entirely interdependent with these living systems. Real progress is the increasing capacity of human and more than human life to flourish across all scales and across all generations.